This will be a short lesson on single-step unit conversions. While I'm talking about these, I'm going to make a plug for always writing down the units for whatever number you happen to have. So I'll start with a real simple example. 7.5 inches. I want to convert this to centimeters. And on this first problem, I'm just going to do the problem, and then I'll talk about the reasons for things later. So, converting to centimeters, I'm going to use the fact that 2.54 centimeters is equal to 1 inch. And by the way, 1 inch is defined to be that many centimeters. At one time, the definition of an inch was that it was 3 grains of barley, dry and round, packed end to end lengthwise. That's no longer the definition of an inch. Nowadays it's 2.54 centimeters, and that's exact. So this is how I would do it. Now when I multiply this, the inches divide out here, and the result I would get here would be 19 centimeters to 2 significant figures. I started with 2 here, I'll end with 2 there. So that's an example of a unit conversion. Always write down the units with any number that you happen to have. If you just wrote 19, someone who is reading it wouldn't know if you were talking about centimeters, inches, meters, yards, feet. Could be anything. So always put down the units. Don't assume that people are going to know what they are. Now, this unit conversion depended on some properties of numbers, and I'm going to state those right now. The first property is that a number divided by its equal will equal 1. So if you have something like 1 inch is equal to 2.54 centimeters, those two things are equal to each other. If I divide 1 inch by 2.54 centimeters, the result will be 1. So 1 inch over 2.54 centimeters is equal to 1 because those things are equal. Also, because these things are equal, 2.54 centimeters over 1 inch is also equal to 1. So that's a nice property. The second property that we use when we're converting units is that multiplying a number by 1 does not change its value, even if that 1 is kind of funny looking. Take a look at these things. This is equal to 1. I refer to these, when I'm teaching this in class, as a funny looking 1. Same with this one. It's a funny looking 1, but multiplying by either of these versions of 1 does not change a number's value. It makes it look different, but it doesn't change its value. And then finally, the last one, if a fraction is equal to 1, then the reciprocal of that fraction is also equal to 1. I actually showed that here. Here's a fraction that's equal to 1. Its reciprocal, 2.54 centimeters over 1 inch, is also equal to 1. And those are properties that all of our unit conversions will depend on. Let me show you another example here. A common race that people run is referred to as a 10K. And what this actually means is 10,000. K means thousand, so it's 10,000 meters. How many miles is that? In order to convert that, we have to know how many meters are in a mile. So happens that 1 mile is equal to 1,609 meters. Here I'm using the accepted abbreviations for mile and meter. A mile is an mi, a meter is an m. I need to make a funny looking 1 that I can multiply by the 10,000 meters in order to convert that to miles. The one that I'll use here is that 1 mile over 1,609 meters is equal to 1. So here's my conversion. 10,000 meters times 1 mile over 1,609 meters is going to equal. The meters, I have one on top of a fraction here and one on the bottom of a fraction. Those will divide out. So those are gone. On my calculator, the actual number part I'd have to do is 10,000 divided by 1,609. The units that are left are just miles. And if I do that, I would get 6.22 miles. Usually when they write down or measure the race course for a 10,000 meter run, they measure it very precisely. I'm just assuming here they measure it to the nearest hundredth of a mile, so I can keep three significant figures here. By the way, another funny looking one that I could have gotten out of here would have been 1,609 meters over 1 mile. I can get that with the same conversion things, but if I use my method for converting by multiplying by this, here's what I'd have. I'd have 10,000 meters times 1,609 meters per mile, and I'd get some huge number. 10,000 times 1,609 would be a big number, but I'd also get meters squared on top and miles on the bottom. So I didn't get rid of the meters, I actually end up squaring them. And by keeping track of the units here at every step in the process, I can see that that's going to be wrong. Sometimes when people just memorize a unit conversion, they think, oh, I just multiply by 1,000, or I just divide by 1,000. When they do that, they tend to be wrong about 50% of the time. And so it's better to write things out this way and use this method. Then you'll never be wrong, because you can keep track of the algebra this way. Suppose you're told that an orbiting satellite going around the Earth is traveling at a speed of 17,000 mph. Okay, and you're just given mph. It so happens that this particular abbreviation is understood to mean 17,000 miles per hour. It's just about the only place that an M by itself stands for miles, but that's what it means. And I want to know, how many miles per second is that? I've got the miles up there already, but I need to convert those hours into seconds. And here's what I need to know for this. 1 hour is equal to 3,600 seconds. There are 60 minutes in an hour and 60 seconds in a minute, so you could figure that out or look it up somewhere. Anyway, that's the conversion I need. In this problem, the units that I want to change are in the denominator. I've got hours down there. Whatever I multiply by, I'm going to want to have hours on top of it in order to have those divide out. And so the 1 hour here, my funny looking 1 will have to have the hours on top, and 3,600 seconds on the bottom. Here's my funny looking 1 that I multiply by. You can see the hours will divide out. I'll be dividing 17,000 by 3,600. That's the mathematics that I do on my calculator. And what I'll end up with for a speed here is about 4.7 miles per second. I'm going to do a nonsense one now, something you've never heard of because I just made these units up this afternoon. Suppose you're told that 4.37 tunk is equal to 6.31 zap. Now, you've never heard of the units of tunk or zap before, and no one else has either because I just made the things up. But you're asked how many tunk are equal to 47.5 zap. Now, this is the way students feel a lot of times. We're asking them to convert units, and often they've never heard of the things before. So, we'll use our method here. 47.5 zap. I'm going to want to change the zaps. They're effectively in a numerator here. Whatever I multiply them by is going to have zap in the bottom of a fraction. So my zaps are going to have to go down there. 6.31 zap and the 4.37 tunk go on top. Now, these two things are equal. Then if I divide a number by its equal, I get 1. So this is just a funny looking 1. When I perform the multiplication, I found out, oh, by the way, the zap will divide out, and so I'm left with nothing but tunk. But I'll find out that 32.9 tunk are equal to 47.5 zap. Didn't know anything about tunk and zap before I made this up, but now I know how to convert from zap into tunk. One last problem here. I looked up the currency conversions today and picked a couple that I know absolutely nothing about. I found out that 1 Bolivian Boliviano is equal to 0.21 Bulgarian lev. Suppose you've just finished a visit to Bolivia and you have left over 373 Boliviano. Your next stop is going to be in Bulgaria and you'll want to convert your money. How many lev is your money worth? Well, we do the conversion here. 373 Boliviano times. I want to change my Boliviano into lev. They're effectively in a numerator here. So in the denominator of my conversion factor, my funny looking 1, I'll have to have the Boliviano down there. So 1 Boliviano goes down there and 0.21 lev go up here. Because these two things are equal, dividing this one by this one is just equal to 1. So here's my funny looking 1. And when I do that multiplication, I find out that I have 78 lev. I have lev because the Boliviano have divided out, and that's what my result will be. These are all single-step unit conversions. I'll do multiple-step or somewhat more complicated unit conversions in other lessons.